Hey there! If you're gearing up for your Certified Safety Professional exam, then you have come to the right place. This is your masterclass on fire prevention and protection. We're going to break down everything, from the real basic science to the super complex systems, giving you the core principles that don't just help you pass a test, they actually save lives.
Welcome back to QHSE Talks. I'm going to be your guide as we tackle one of the most critical and honestly one of the most interesting domains in our entire field. So you might want to get something to take notes, and let's get you ready to absolutely crush this section of the exam.
Okay, first things first. Before we can even begin to talk about putting fires out, we've got to understand what they are. So this first section, it's all about the fundamental physics. This is the absolute bedrock of every single prevention and protection strategy you will ever use.
So heat gets around in three main ways. Think of radiation like the heat you feel from the sun or a campfire. You don't have to touch it to feel the burn. Convection, that's like how a heater warms up a room. The hot air rises, circulates, and moves the heat around. And then there's conduction, which is heat traveling through direct contact, kind of like how the handle of a metal spoon gets hot in a cup of coffee. In a real fire, all three of these are happening at the same time, which is exactly what makes them spread so darn fast.
You know, a lot of us grew up learning about the simple fire triangle: oxygen, fuel, and heat. But that's a bit outdated. Modern fire science uses the Fire Tetrahedron. So why the upgrade? Well, because it adds a fourth, absolutely crucial side: the uninhibited chemical chain reaction. This is the self-sustaining process, the engine that actually keeps the fire burning.
So let's break down those four ingredients. First, you need an oxidizer, which 9 times out of 10 is just the oxygen in the air. Second, you need fuel, the stuff that's actually burning. Third, you need heat, that initial spark or energy to get the whole party started. And finally, that critical piece, that self-sustaining chemical reaction that lets the fire grow all on its own.
Okay, listen up, because this is probably the most important concept for any safety professional to grasp. To stop a fire, you don't have to fight all four sides at once. You just have to break one side of that tetrahedron. That's it. You can remove the fuel, you can cool it down to remove the heat, you can smother it to cut off the oxygen, or you can use chemicals to interrupt that chain reaction. Every single fire extinguisher, every sprinkler system, it's all designed to do one of those four things.
So we know what a fire is. Now we need to figure out how to fight it. And that always starts with identifying what kind of fire you're dealing with and then choosing the right tool for that specific job.
This table right here is your cheat sheet, and you absolutely need to know it by heart. Class A is your everyday stuff: wood, paper, trash. Class B involves flammable liquids and gases like gasoline. Class C is electrical, and the key word is energized. If you cut the power, it's not a Class C fire anymore. Class K, that's for commercial kitchens. Think deep fryers. And please, pay special attention to Class D. These are combustible metals. Trying to put water on a magnesium fire can cause a violent, literal explosion. Knowing these classes is totally non-negotiable. Now, it's super important to understand the difference between these two tasks. The monthly visual inspection is just a quick once-over that anyone can be trained to do. Is the extinguisher there? Can you get to it easily? Does the gauge look like it's in the green? Simple stuff. But the annual maintenance, that's a whole different beast. That's a deep dive by a certified professional who's taking it apart, checking the mechanical parts, and making sure the agent inside is still good. You can't mix these two up. All right, time for some good old-fashioned memorization for the exam. Hydrostatic testing is basically a pressure test to make sure the extinguisher cylinder is still safe and won't rupture. The key numbers you have got to remember are 5 years for things like water and CO2 extinguishers and 12 years for most of your dry chemical and halon types. Just lock those numbers away in your brain: 5 and 12. Portable extinguishers are fantastic, but they have one big limitation: they need a person to operate them. So now let's talk about the systems that protect a facility 24/7, whether anyone's there or not. These are the silent guardians, your first and honestly your best line of automated defense.
Okay, let's do a quick run-through of the main sprinkler types. Wet pipe is the one you see most often. The pipes are full of water ready to go instantly. Dry pipe systems are for places that might freeze. They're filled with pressurized air that holds the water back until a sprinkler head opens. Deluge systems are for high-hazard areas where they just dump a massive amount of water everywhere all at once. And then you have pre-action systems, which are really clever. They need a two-step trigger, like a smoke detector and a sprinkler head fusing. That's vital for places like data centers where you absolutely want to avoid an accidental water discharge.
Pay attention, here's a big exam tip. You have to know the difference between these two types of heat detectors. A rate of rise detector is super sensitive. It triggers if the temperature shoots up really fast. But that can lead to false alarms from something as simple as a heater kicking on. That's why rate compensation detectors are often a better choice. They wait for the temperature to hit a specific fixed point before activating, which makes them much more stable and reliable.
All right, let's pivot and talk about one of the highest risk areas in pretty much any industrial setting, flammable and combustible liquids. Seriously, understanding the physics here isn't just academic, it's what prevents absolute catastrophes.
If you only remember one number from this entire explainer, make it this one: 100 degrees Fahrenheit. This temperature, this single number, is the critical dividing line. It's the legal and technical definition that separates what we call a flammable liquid from a combustible one.
So what is a flash point? Well, it's the lowest temperature where a liquid gives off enough vapor to ignite, and that 100-degree mark is the key. If the flash point is below 100 degrees Fahrenheit, it's a flammable liquid. That means it can be a fire hazard even at room temperature. If it's at or above 100 degrees, we call it a combustible liquid. It's a simple distinction, but it's an absolutely critical one for risk assessment.
Now here are two properties that are so important but so often confused. First, vapor density. If it's greater than 1, that means the fumes are heavier than air. So what do? They sink. They'll travel along the floor, down into pits, and just wait for an ignition source. Then there's specific gravity. If it's less than 1, the liquid itself is lighter than water. This is huge. It means if you spray water on it, the burning liquid will just float on top and spread everywhere. This is exactly why we use foam for these kinds of fires.
So how do we safely store these things? Well, here are the key engineering controls you'll see. The room itself has to have fire-rated construction, usually for 1 or 2 hours. You absolutely have to have containment, like a 4-inch curb or a dipped floor, to keep any spills inside that room. And of course, all your pipes and transfer systems need to have liquid-tight valves to prevent leaks in the first place.
All right, let's switch gears. We're heading into the final stretch. Think of this as a rapid-fire cram session. These are the most testable concepts we've covered, so let's lock them in. Pay close attention here.
Here we go, let's hit the highlights. NFPA 10, that's the Bible for fire extinguishers. 19.5%, that's the minimum oxygen level for a safe atmosphere. 5 years is the hydro test cycle for CO2 and water. And 12 years is the cycle for Halon and most dry chemical extinguishers. You gotta know these cold.
And here's one last, very specific exam alert. Be ready to identify common Class D combustible metals. Magnesium, sodium, and potassium are the classic examples they love to use on tests. And please remember, they require a special dry powder agent, which is totally different from the dry chemical agents we use for ABC fires. It's a classic trick question.
So look, we've gone through a ton of technical info, the physics, the classifications, the systems, but you can never forget why this stuff matters. This knowledge isn't just to pass an exam. It is the shield that you use every single day out in the field. So the final question is really for you. How are you going to use it to protect your people and your operations? Thanks for learning with us here at QHSE Talks.